Hi guys, welcome back.
Hi everyone.
What's up?
So we're here this week, and for a topic, it was like the thought that was coming to us was like the lost sheep and like leaving the 99 type of a thing. But the story that I keep thinking of is a story that I actually heard on another podcast. I feel like we could just spend our whole entire podcast taking from other people. That's what we do. But this story was so inspiring to me because it was so honest. Like in the story, the man was talking about how his biggest enemy for himself was disappointment. Because he said when he felt disappointed, it led to resentment. And then the resentment could take on a life of its own and like head in any direction. And the story that he told was how he was releasing a book. And it was like he had worked so hard on this book. It meant the world to him and he couldn't wait. And he was having all these images and visions of glory and success and just like book sales. And it's not why he wrote the book, but it was like something that he was imagining. And just before his book was meant to be released, he was supposed to go on a book tour. And his father got like really, really sick and had like a huge medical event. And he had to take care of his dad. So instead of going on his book tour, he was taking care of his father. And so he missed out on his book tour. And then when the book was actually released, there was a huge blizzard that took over like the whole East Coast. And he was like, I couldn't even get out anywhere the day of my book release. And I was like, I was mad. I was like, why did this happen now? Why is this my luck? Why? And he's like, in the middle of it, I didn't realize how many agreements I was making with these negative thoughts. Like it was like disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. And he said that it led to resentment. Like, okay, God, what's this about? Like, why did you make this happen? What? And he's like, before I knew it, I became the accuser. Mm-hmm. So I went from like excited to disappointed to resentful to accusation.
Wow. Yeah, you told me that story. I did not listen to the podcast, but you told me that story earlier. And the thing that you mentioned that really got me was the expectations, the expectations of what we think something is going to look like or be like. Or I feel like, especially if you know that God is asking you to do something, like if you know you're doing something for the glory, for the work of God, and it's a struggle to do it or things don't work out, you're like, first of all, I think you end up like questioning, was it really for you? And then you get angry. Like you said, that resentment builds of like, well, you asked me to do this, or I thought I was doing this for you, and I'm struggling, you know? I ran into someone today and I hadn't seen her in about a year, maybe even almost 2 years. It had been a really long time. And we were just like catching up. I met her. She's like a fellow widow of mine. And we met around the time our husbands died. And so we were in like the struggle together, you know? And we both have our own journey of faith. And she asked me, how are you? You know, how are things? What's new? You know, I had been out of touch with her for a while. And I was like, things are good. And, you know, giving her the list of things. And I asked her, I said, how are you? And she was like, well, it's been rough, you know? And then she was sharing some things she was going through. But then all of a sudden she was like, but thank God for God, because I don't know where I would be without him. Like, what would life have been without him? And it makes me think of like, you know, saying, like she said, if I'm doing this with God, it doesn't mean that there isn't a struggle anymore, you know? And I feel like going back to the story with the book, it's like, if that was his actual, you know, mission, if that was what God was asking him to do, it's in our minds and our human minds, it should just be easy, you know?
Actually, I'm going to bring up a kind of an analogy, but we hear all the time in the Bible that, you know, there's like death comes like a thief in the night, but sometimes death doesn't always mean physical death. It just means the stealing of joy. Because eternal life, if heaven is complete joy, death, essentially to the spirit, can be the absence of joy. And I feel like that's what the enemy tries to pick at. It's the slithering in like a thief in the night and stealing stuff from your house to try to, your spiritual house, to steal your joy, to send you into a psychotic spree where you're, like constantly angry, constantly sad, constantly, wary and trying to figure out, running around the house trying to stomp the snake by yourself. Instead, what you can do is, first off, if you do lose stuff, sometimes it's best to just let go. But another thing is, sometimes it's better to just let someone else who can actually handle the snakes. Like, Jesus.
I like the idea of stealing the joy, because I feel like that's exactly what was happening to the man who was telling his story. He had so much joy in his project. He loved building what he built. He loved writing the book. He was so excited to share it. And then it was like in the moment that he thought it should be and the way that he thought it should be, it wasn't. And the joy was literally taken, and it was like turned on him. I mean, he eventually came to a realization that like, this is all okay. It's not the end of the world. The book actually is doing quite well. But at the end of the day, he basically was, his joy was taken. His power was taken. And I think sometimes that also is like control. Mm-hmm. When you care about something and you want to do well, or you want it to do well, you want to control it. You don't want to allow things to happen to make it not work. And I think that's when you end up playing like that old fashioned whack-a-mole game where like, it's like this pops up and you hit it and then something else and then you hit that. And then it's like, you're constantly all over the place, but you're never still. Mm-hmm. You're almost stuck in that.
Yeah, I think the disappointment that he may have faced with the book was probably like disappointment in the outcome, like the disappointment that he couldn't be there for the mm-hmm. book release and things like that. But also, and I think that when the joy is robbed and all you feel is the disappointment because of your expectations, you start to then believe that lie that you're the disappointment as mm-hmm. well. I work so hard on this and it's not executing in the way that mm-hmm. it should be, or I expect it to be, So I think you then start to believe that, you're your own disappointment as well. You're disappointed in God, you're disappointed in the outcome, but also yourself, which is so sneaky.
I feel like a lot of my students would sometimes, like, especially if they're on teams and they're playing a sport and like they're not maybe performing, or they are performing, or their team doesn't think that they're performing, or like that's when that also, it's like disappointment, and then like you're dismissed. Mm-hmm. It's like you don't really matter because you're not living up to the expectation. You're not living up to what it is that your team maybe thinks you should be. Like, I've had so many kids like just feel so discouraged because the people that they were playing with were maybe talking about them, or like, and I'm always like, I always think in that context, I'm like, it's easy for me to say because I'm not on the team. So I'm just like, okay, well, be the better person, be the person who, be the person who leads with their integrity, be the person. But at the end of the day, it's like, maybe they just want to be the person who's going to say, I can't stand these people right now because they can't shut their mouths about me, or, and I feel like that's the part where sometimes we forget like the humanity in it. Like, yeah, if people are treating you poorly, give yourself permission in the moment to speak that truth. Maybe not to them, but maybe to somebody else. Just like, don't pretend like it's okay to be treated like that. It's a twist, but it's so tempting just to be like, take the higher road, be the better person. Mm-hmm. When, I almost feel like you're bypassing your own feelings at that point.
It reminds me of someone we know, and she was saying like, she could tell she was like about to like explode, like the tears were about mm-hmm. to come or whatever. And she like called her into the like a room like separate and like from everybody else, and was like, what's going on? And she was a basketball player on the team, and she was like, we work so hard, we've been practicing, we've been doing better, and like now look, like we're not really actually like executing in the way we should. Like we should be winning. We should be, and you could see like the discouragement. And she was disappointed in her teammates. And she was like, it was just like so many things that were like bottled up in her. And I felt like that moment of just being able to like get it out was just like that release, and then gave her, you know, a way to get back in. But discouragement is real.
It really is. And I feel like if you just allow it to control the scenario by hiding it, pushing it down, hiding it, locking it away, and like not allowing it the freedom to like breathe. Like, not that I'm saying that you should spew your hatred or any of that on other people, but like say what you think, you know, speak your truth, say it out loud. Like, and I feel like that's where the light can be shined into it, and you can look at it and say, okay, this isn't the end.
In boxing, your coach, what he does is he sometimes calls you out on the holes in your game. And that's the only way to get it fixed. You can't just brush over the holes in the game, or else it's never going to get fixed, and it's going to show in a fight. And I feel like that's usually what happens. It's like when, you know, we get wounded or whatever, and we get discouraged and stuff, and we simply brush over it instead of acknowledging it and allowing ourselves to heal and fix ourselves, it's going to come out in a different place, and probably a more important place. It's going to explode, essentially.
And you don't want it to explode if you're having a fight, because that's like the last place that, you know.
Because that's what they do. They execute. They find where your holes are, where your weakness is, and they hunt it. That's exactly how the enemy works too. It's why if you don't heal yourself, the enemy's just going to continuously hunt and beat at that one wound right there. Well, maybe not one wound, because we all know we have several. So it's going to go after the wounds, especially the ones that hurt the most.
Yeah, it reminds me of when you said control is an illusion. You know, it's like the more we try to control, the more we don't. Like the loss of control becomes so much more real. Like I feel like when we're trying to grasp at it, and then leaves the openings for your weak parts. I could see it in the boxing ring, actually. Like it's kind of cool to even make that analogy.
It really is. It's so fitting also. Maybe that's why we talk about Rocky so much on this show, because it is kind of spiritual warfare, you know?
Yeah.
I think it applies to anything, really. Like I even think of, I like to have like control and like order of things. And I could remember when I got my puppy, she's 4 now, but when we first got her, I could remember like she didn't know how to go to the bathroom outside and like do her business. And I could remember it would be like, we were just so not used to it because the other dog was so well trained and like so much older. And it was like with her, it was like she couldn't control it if she tried. She was so little and so young. So I was like, all right, like every 20 minutes, I'm bringing her outside. Every 20 minutes, I'm bringing her outside. And I could remember like I would bring her outside and I would be like, go to the bathroom. Like I could remember like, but it was like this, have to control it, and like be out there for like such a long period of time trying to like force her into, I mean, eventually she like got, you know, obviously got into like the correct routine, but it was like that, like control of it. If I don't control this now, I'm never going to control it. If I don't, and I could just remember being out there with her and being like, what is she waiting for? And like getting frustrated. Even my daughter, she like famously tells a story of like, she's like, I'd be like, just go to the bathroom. She's like, and I'd be like crying, like I have to go to school, or I have to like, and it was like always just wanting to manage, wanting to control. But at the same time, it's like the balance. I think it's the balance of like the discipline of like, okay, this is what I have to do. Right. Like it's a responsibility.
Right.
But it also isn't such a huge responsibility that it's going to determine if I'm a good person.
Or if I'm okay.
Yeah. Like it shouldn't lead to that type of like, you know, crazy. I would call it crazy at that point.
You mean how I like to control Sunny on the podcast sometimes? He's been so much better, but
he has been so good.
I think it's what you hear. So the lie that you might hear and agree with is, I'm a disappointment. I'm a failure. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what I was hearing. Like if I can't get my dog to go to the bathroom outside, with the way she's supposed to. What does that tell me about me? I remember, oh my gosh, this is reminding me of when Brian and I took Sunny for puppy training.
God, I remember this.
Oh gosh. Okay. So it was like AKC puppy training. So it was like the pre-training for them to approve whether or not they were going to be able to be a therapy dog. And in all honesty, like we didn't want him to be a therapy dog. We just were looking for training, and our groomer was running the training. So this was like perfect. So Sunny is like a very happy dog. Like he loves people, obviously, as we all can hear him like talking to you sometimes, but he's just like happy. Like you walk in the door and he is like so excited to see you, and that's just his personality. So when I would go to this puppy training, most times Brian and I went together, I would be like, I'm the failure. Mm-hmm. Like if Sunny didn't perform the right way, I was mortified. Like if he couldn't get himself trained in one way, shape, or form, I would be like, I failed. Mm-hmm. And they'd give homework, and I'm like, I did the homework and he's still not. Like I remember Brian looked at me, he's like, you're not in training. Sunny's in training. And I'm like, I know, but if he's not doing it, then what does it say about me? I'm terrible. And like by the end, he made it like all 10 classes and got his little like ribbon award or whatever. And they were like, he's just too excited to be a therapy dog, you know? And Brian, I remember Brian being like, that's just his personality. Like, we're not going to change who he is. Like, he did get trained. He does know how to walk on the leash now. He does know how to not eat your flip-flops anymore, because he always used to eat my flip-flops. And I remember, like, it benefited, but it was like, for me, it was all on me.
I could remember that. I remember those days. I remember you stressing and being like, Sunny is not passing his classes. And I was like, what? I could just remember that whole entire scenario. I remember every week. I remember
it was torture.
And I remember the
torture. End,
yeah. Like him not being
They gave him the ribbon anyway. I can't wait to post that when this episode releases. Be on the lookout, people, that picture of him with his ribbon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's somehow like comparing all these, everything can be controlled. It's almost like, well, I don't want to say everything can be controlled. It's everything can be an obsession. An obsession of freedom is a lack of control, even if you want freedom. So it's almost like, you know, touching upon actually what Marissa said now. I'm going to change gears a little bit. I feel like it's almost a projection of failure. It's like the projection of the fear that if my dog, or I guess in some parents' cases, if my kids fail this class, I'm a failure as a parent. So now I need to make sure they pass, or else we're all failures. The entire family ends with us type of mentality. But the reality is, if you fail a class, you're not going to just like, the world's not going to explode. Yeah. That's what I want to, obviously, try to pass your classes. I'm not saying don't attempt to achieve greatness, but I'm also saying don't break yourself to achieve greatness.
It's the balance.
Yeah, I think what you said before was so perfect. Like, we had a responsibility. You have a responsibility to try your best and pass your classes. You have a responsibility to train your dog and, you know, go through the things. But the obsession about it, the control of it, the fear of it not being perfect, you know, I feel like everything always comes down to balance.
It really does.
You know, it's like we can't just give up and do nothing, but there's no freedom if we're one way all the way or the other way all the way. Like, there has to be flexibility, there has to be trust, and there has to be faith, really.
And I feel like that's the fluidity. That's when the movement becomes more like beautiful. I know you feel better in the ring when you're moving, when your feet are moving, when your head is like moving. It's better than being stiff. Like, that's what Dad always used to say, like, this one's looking very stiff today. They're not like moving well. And I feel like if you're not moving well, I'm feeling like there's maybe a sense of failure. Maybe there's a fear. It's almost as though that prevents you from having the grace to move, whether it's in boxing or in dog training or in lacrosse or whatever basketball, whatever sport it is, whatever field it is, school. I think that's like, do your best, try, put your effort in, but don't allow yourself to be, for your joy to be stolen by, a grade that's maybe not as good, or a game that's maybe not as good, or a sparring match. That's what you call it. That's not as good, And I think it's also really important to note that the words of other people do have power. Mm-hmm. They really do. It's so easy sometimes as an adult to look at younger people and say, well, you can't let those words hurt you. It's such an easy thing to say, but it's such a hard thing to live. So I think in terms of like people's words against you, yeah, they do hurt. It does feel like an attack. It does feel like a part of you has been wounded. And like say it out loud, whether you have a therapist or just a good friend or somebody, like, yeah, this really bothered me. And the truth of that, I think, brings some type of level of freedom, because like there's nothing better to me than when somebody says to me, you're right, that shouldn't have been said. Like, that was wrong. And, you don't deserve to be spoken to that way. And it's like sometimes just hearing that takes you out of enemy mode and puts you in a position where, okay, somebody understands me. Somebody hears me. And out of all of us that are going to hear you, God is going to hear you. Mm-hmm. He is going to step in for you every single time. Go to him. Like, go to him. He's there. He's waiting. He's available. I feel like we forget about him.
I know.
We go everywhere. We go everywhere. We go to the person who's going to read my tarot cards. We go to the person who's going to read the stars. We go to everyone and everything. We go to our coaches. Go to him too. Go to him first. Just say to him straight up, I feel rejected. I feel dismissed. I feel discouraged. Fill me with what's true. And he is going to fill you with that. He's going to fill you with the truth of who you are, of whose you are, that you are perfectly, beautifully made by him, specifically, especially. And no one on this whole planet has ever been you, will ever be you, or could ever be you, because that's how special each one of us are. Just remember that, I think. Like, you matter so much. Go to him and watch what he does.
Wow, that's tough to follow.
I don't know why.
Yeah. I'm seeing a picture that I saw on social media. When we do go to him, it's like we go to him and we think there's just one little thing. And I think it was roses. I think it was a picture of a rose. And it's like my prayer when I go to God. And it's like, it was like one rose, and then it was a door. And on the other side, it was what I get when I actually do trust in him and do listen to him and do go to him with my words, my feelings, all the things. And it was like thousands of roses just flowing down. And I feel like that's what he gives us. If we go to him with the feeling of being rejected, of being dismissed, of being a failure, it's like one tiny little thing that we give to him. But the amount of grace and the amount of truth that he fills us with is overflowing. Mm-hmm. And the consistency of going to him too, it just builds the spiritual warfare where no one's ever going to say they think should bounce off you, because they don't, and they shouldn't. And that's just like a bypassing thing, but the truth will lie in there more and more and more when you continuously go to him.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, going to him, it's absolutely necessary. Because are you ever going to really trust a stranger to have your life in their hands? No, you want like someone close to you, a father, a family member. I should say other family member, a friend, someone like that. So make Jesus that family member, that friend. Make him close.
And that builds a relationship. Builds a relationship of trust and
yeah. And power. Listen to me. There is power in his name. There is power in the friendship. There is power in that relationship. And then when the world tries to steal your peace, and it will, he will step in for you. He will show you you're not alone. You're not abandoned. You are mine. Like, I feel like just go to him. And it's like, we are a Christian Catholic podcast. Go to Jesus very specifically. And you know what? You might want to get to know his mother, because let me tell you something right now. The power in the prayers that are answered when we ask her to intercede for us, it is endless. There is something about that mother-son relationship where Jesus just steps up, and it is biblical. It is biblical. He did his first miracle at her request, and her request was made. Nobody even asked her to. She saw a need, like a mother, like a good mother tries to do. Unlike me, who's playing whack-a-mole, she does it ordered. She does it right. She sees that there's a need. She goes to her son for you without you even knowing that you need it. So build that relationship with her too, because she's like a mother in the best way that you can ever ask. I fail. Ask James. I totally fail. I flip out. I'm like, this dog. The things that come out of my mouth, but not her. She's like there. She sees your need and she wants it filled. And that's why water was turned into wine. And it was the best wine at the whole entire party. So just remember, like, go, you have a family. We always want to touch heaven. Do it. Touch heaven. It is available to you. Amen. Wow. Tiny miracles?
Yep. I'm ready.
Okay.
My sister-in-law got me this most beautiful candle. So it was a cross candle, but it was like flat and there was a bunch of wicks in it. So it's like giant. So when you light it, it's just like the whole cross lights up, and the way it was like tied with a bow. And she was just like, I saw this and I thought of you and I had to get one for you. And I was like, oh my gosh. So that cross candle is my tiny miracle.
I love that. My tiny miracle is yesterday was St. Joseph Day, and I don't usually get to go to church on like during the week, but they had adoration at my church, and it was like the time James was like, "Oh, you're going to adoration or whatever," and I was like, "Yeah, we'll go." And then I realized I was like, "Oh, it's like St. Joseph Day, and they're gonna have mass," and it was like one of my favorite priests ever, and he was just so beautiful, and that was like I want to say that was like my tiny miracle, was being able to go to mass on St. Joseph Day, because St. Joseph is also awesome.
Mine was being able to go to the Brandon Lake concert.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes. Thank you, Tara, and for taking James.
That's an experience.
Should I give a shout out to Robbie? I don't know if he even listens.
Go ahead.
You get a shout out to Robbie. I don't know if you're listening to this, but shout out to you, bro.
And Lily and Haley.
Yeah, that's so great.
All you guys had the best time.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, please remember to like, share, subscribe, follow. Please comment too. I feel like we've gotten a lot of interaction lately from you guys. Prayer requests, like, we'll take it all. We love communicating with you. We love seeing you on there. And especially those things that you do on social media really help us grow and reach more people. So,
yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. James, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
We got a bell, little whales.
Good
Does
one.
that rhyme?
Yes, it does.